Taylor said, quote, "If Rory McIlroy goes and completes his career Grand Slam without some of the best players in the world, there's just going to be an asterisk. It's just the reality. I think everybody wins whenever the majors figure out a way to get the best players in the world there." End quote. Kyle, given your
No.
proximity to Mr. Gooch, I'll give you the floor first. He's been, like you said, a Take Smith these past couple years. This one, throw it up on the resume as well. One of his best works, potentially Mona Lisa, so to speak. I guess when you're when you see this quote when you first heard it, what was your your instant reaction?
Well, first of all, the Live League is kind of the Oklahoma State professional
It
league
kind of is.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of is.
with Chuck Howell, Matthew Wolf, Gooch,
Uline?
Peter Uline. I mean, there's like 5 or Chikara.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 5 or 6 guys that went to Oklahoma State. Yeah, I mean, listen, like it's not a good look. I'm actually going to zag a little bit on this. Patrick, probably go in a different direction. I think that in a lot of ways, Talor Gooch is correct. Like I think what he's saying has some merit, but it's like, man, presented in a worse way, right? Presented in like the worst way you feasibly can by like calling out a future Rory slam because, I mean, essentially just because you're not there. I mean, what other meaningful live golfers are not in the Masters? It's like Gooch and Varner. I don't know. I mean, Neiman's there now. So you've got all these live guys that are there. So you're basically personally asterisking Rory's future slam, which is just an insane like corner to be on, right? Like that's just an insane position. But I think like, it's interesting if you don't want to use the OWGR, if you're Talor Gooch, like what do you want to use? Okay. Do you want to use data golf? Well, there's a bunch of guys in the data golf top 50 or top 60 that are not in the Masters that are on the PGA Tour, right? Talor Gooch is 40th in data golf. He's a very good golfer, but it's not as if like the world is necessarily out to get you, right? I just think it just is such this like, like mentality of like, oh, the world's out to get us. Like you haven't been relevant in like there's other ways to play your way into major change. Joaquin Neiman went out and did it on the DP World Tour in December, right? He went out and won the Australian Open. Like there's paths to do that. But I do think like, I think at the end of the day, like I actually have some sympathy for where Gooch is coming from, even if the presentation was horrific, because I think that the majors do need to sort of say to themselves like, hey, how can we kind of be above the fray with the PGA Tour live stuff and still have the best fields possible, which, like the fields have never been perfect, right? Dating back for the last 100 years, you've never had like a perfect field. There's always going to be somebody that's left out. But I do sort of sympathize with where he's coming from, even though I don't agree at all with the statement.
I hear you, Kyle. And I just want to point out a couple of things. First off, I've talked with a couple of Masters champions who are not very happy at all that Neiman got an invitation. But that's just by the by. The Masters already doing that with the invitation that they sent to Waco Neiman. But as it pertains to Talor over here, I mean, this is coming from a guy that compared a live golf event when it was at its infancy to the Ryder Cup. And he's like, the vibes are the same. So you got to know, hold on, we're somewhat removed from reality over here.
Yeah.
And then the way I see it, I'm like, look, you have knowledge and you have wisdom. Knowledge is what you know. Wisdom is knowing when to say it and when not to say it. And if you've got a microphone in front of you, I understand the clickbait of it. I understand the fact that you're trying to make a statement and stuff, but just be wise in this situation and don't go and say it in a place where it's going to come out. Because the worst thing that's going to happen now is if Rory does win the Masters, then all of a sudden people are going to probably take on Talor Gooch. So I don't think he's doing himself any favors whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things, Mark, that you have to understand your stature and the power that you do or don't have. Like if Brooks Koepka went out and said, like, took this position, I think it would be heard as like a legitimate thing because he's a 5-time major champion. Talor Gooch doesn't have a top 12 in a major, right? And so like take reasonable positions based on the amount of power that you've earned. I mean, yeah, major champions do and should have power, and Talor Gooch doesn't have a top 10 in a major. And I just think that that's it's something that he needs to consider before saying stuff like that.
Think a bit before you open your mouth. Golly.
I made a choice, and now I want you to change your rules based on my choice. Right? It doesn't make any sense. The major championships have had rules in place for hundreds of years. And there's not really anywhere that says we're going to do everything we can to get the best players in this field, right? It becomes arbitrary at some point. If Talor Gooch didn't leave to go play live, but left to go play basketball, would he still be demanding a spot in the majors? Because he's playing basketball now, but he's still a great golfer. Like you're not doing anything to meet up to the qualifications that they have. So until you do that, don't ask them to change because of a decision that you made. That doesn't make any sense. And then the other thing is on the asterisk, there's one time I remember where asterisks have been brought up, and it's when Tiger Woods was out and Padraig Harrington was winning majors. And you think about all the other situations where one guy, that's really what we're talking about here. One guy is left out of a major. And in the past, it's been due to injury. Dustin Johnson in 2017. Does Sergio Garcia get an asterisk because DJ fell down the stairs? No, that was never brought up. Rory McIlroy in 2015 misses the Open at St. Andrews. Does Zach Johnson have an asterisk for missing for winning that Masters because Rory hurt himself playing soccer? No, it's never brought up. It's been brought up one time when a guy who has won 15 majors now and won at a 30% clip through his career missed a couple of majors. He had also won, I think, like 6 of 7 starts that year. So it's like a reasonable thing to bring up. And still the consensus is no, there's not an asterisk. So this is wrong on so many levels.
I think I agree with the asterisk thing. I thought you were going to go in a completely different direction and go towards Mark's one and done record. Not the prior major championships.
Hey, I won that league last year. I won that league.
When Greg goes, the only time an asterisk has been brought up, I was like, oh, he's going for it.
He's going to one and done.
I will say I do agree with Kyle from the perspective of Gooch is kind of a gunslinger when it comes to what's on his mind. And for us who get to talk about the game, get to analyze and write about it, I love it. It's awesome. I wish more people were like it. Could he have come across a different way? Sure, absolutely. But it's fine in my book. And as for the major championship qualification, you got to remember, this is a guy who was in the U.S. Open last year at first. They changed the qualification, and he said, I'm not going through local. Sorry, guys. Sergio Garcia did it, and he said, I'm too good for it. I don't want to do it. And he missed the U.S. Open last year. So there's an asterisk on Wyndham Clark's victory as well. And then finally, back to the Joaquin Niemann point of him qualifying, you got Dean Burmeister, who also qualified for the Open. David Puig just qualified for the Open with a win on the Asian Tour, I believe, as well. So there are avenues for these guys to get in, and these live golfers, because they are good enough, have been able to. And I think one final point, it's 2024, this major championship season. 2019 Masters winner, 5-year exemption, Patrick Reed is coming up. And I just, maybe he wins one this year, maybe he doesn't. But in 2025, to Kyle's point about Brooks, if Patrick Reed was out of major championships, given the, perspective, given what he has done on the major championship stage, it is far different than someone like Talor Gooch missing a major championship.
Well, that's a point that I think he was 18, Tiger was 19, but your point remains. Like it
18,
it
yes.
ends in 25. And I think that's what I was going to bring up is like, this doesn't seem like that big of a deal right now because you're like, whatever, Talor Gooch, like you're like Rory winning the Masters doesn't, I mean, it's laughable. Like Greg said, that there would be an asterisk next to it. But I do think that there is some concern if the Live PGA Tour thing doesn't get resolved, that like, okay, what about when your DJs or your Brysons or people like that start falling out of majors and there's not really like that is when it becomes more of a like a real concern. And that's where I look at the majors and I'm like, you guys don't even need the OWGR. Like, use the data golf, use whatever system that you want to kind of be above the fray. I mean, I think Talor Gooch is one of the 50 best players in the world. And whether that means he should get an invite to the Masters, I don't run the Masters. I don't run the PGA Championship. Like, they can invite who they want. And I trust that all those organizations are incentivized to have the best possible field, right? Or to have the best possible tournament. That's why they extended an invite to Joaquin Niemann. Like, I mean, this literally just happened with a live golfer. So yeah, I have some concern about the OWGR as a determiner of like who actually the best players in the world are. And I think that starts to, more holes in that will be revealed as time goes on.
Just one more thing, Patrick. If you've been paying attention, you would have heard Greg Norman doubling down on social media about the world ranking points. And it seems like the narrative's coming out. And you know, remember when Liv began, we saw all and sundry tweeting and coming out whenever they had a microphone in front of their face, talking about how they were growing the game and they were doing this for golf, and it's not about the money, and the official world golf ranking is a thing of the devil. And it almost seems to me now that they've got Rahm, that there's a renewed push, and now they're pulling off the Anthony Kim coup. I mean, this is such a big one. Now they're all after the media again, and they're trying to make headlines. And it just appears to me that Talor Gooch is a real company guy. So obviously he's getting a really nice deal from Greg and the PIF and all that sort of thing. And he's just playing ball because he kind of has to. Because remember, we've even seen John Rahm in his Letterman jacket going on all the shows describing why he's done this stuff. So I feel like this is company policy. And Talor Gooch, yes, he's a gunslinger, but he's just towing the party line right now.